If I look at the financing activities, it's extremely important that you know your format, because they always catch you like this. Because if they ask you investing, then you go put financing, and if you put financing, then you get confused with the two. So just make sure that you understand. Investing is where I put my money in to get a return. The company is putting his money in there. So he buys fixed assets, he sells fixed assets, he makes a fixed deposit. Okay? Financing is about how are we going to get the funds to run our company. And there's only two ways you can do it. First way is getting it on your own. That would be through shares. The other way is through making loans. Own and borrow. Okay? So your financing would be about the shares. And you can see I show there when I sell shares and when I buy shares. And the next one is on the loan. Now in this case it's the change in loan, because the only information they gave me is that we paid back on the loan. But please be aware that if they give us information to say we made a loan, a new extra loan, and we are paying back on the loan. In other words, there's a paying and a receiving of the loan. Then it's extremely important that you guys show it separate. You don't just show the net effect. You will show the increase on loan is so much, the decrease you show it separately. Okay, now let's go look at this one. Shares issued, I've done the capital note. So shares issued would be that 2027. I just transferred that. But with the repurchase, I can't just go and transfer the 837. Because if you remember correctly, if I repurchase, I have a buying back price, or here I said sales price, but it's a price I buy it back at. And it's the total price, and that consists of the average, which I show in the ordinary share capital, and the above average, which I show in the retained income. Okay? So it's extremely important that you don't just take the one. Can you see here? The 837 is only part of it. You see? Then they still add 243. Now where do they get the 243 from? If I go look here, if I go look at the information, they tell me shares were repurchased at 4 rand and the average price was 310. So if the total price is 4, the average is 310, then it means above average is 90. And how many shares did I buy back? 270. So 270 times 90 cents gives me the above average. And that's why I add the two together. The other method is the easier one, or the shorter one, because they tell me I buy it for 4 rand. So I just take that 270 times the 4 rand that I pay, and then I get the amount. Very important, it's a bracket, because remember the brackets show an outflow of cash. Inflow, because I sell and then I get money. Outflow, because I buy, meaning I lose money. And the same with the loan. I paid, so I lose money. It's an outflow of cash. Now where did they get, why are they subtracting stuff? Now if you think about it, if I do my loan T account, opening and a closing and a bank and an interest on loan, okay? So that bank is the interest that I pay and the installment on the loan itself, the payment on the loan itself. In other words, if I say the opening less the closing, I will get that payment. Okay, so what are they giving me? If I read here, can you see? Repayments including interest. So they give me this bank. But what do I want? I want to see how much did I pay on the loan. So how much will I know if I paid in total 56,900, ne? Per month, ne? That will give me how much I paid in total, and from that I subtract the interest, because that will tell me how much I paid back on the loan. Can you see how I got that 682? It's the 56 times 12. Everybody sharp with that. Okay. Now when I get to the net change of cash, and I've seen they've done this in the, I think it's the June exam, they also did this. Remember when we do the cash flow, right at the end, we must got operating activities, investing activities, financing activities. Then we get change in cash, opening cash, closing cash. And it looks like this. So I will get here, if I say this is 2 less 1 plus 5, then I get 6, right? Can you see I can do it downwards? And then I would look, what was my opening? Oh, my opening was 4 and my closing was 10. But I'm also able to work it backwards, right? So 10 less 4 gives me 6. Now can you see where my line is? Can you see my line? Now, in other words, this is on the top. 6 plus 4 gives me 10. But now, if you go look on the original answer sheet, and this is how they gave it to you previously as well. I can't remember if it's the project or the June exam. Can you see where they draw their line? Can you see? Can you see how our lines are? Can you see the difference? What they did is they put a line here, and these were open. So theirs looked like this, 6, 4, 10, and they put a line there. Can you see it's different? And so what happened now is most of you used the lines they gave. So you said basically minus 57 plus 380, and then you get something there. That's what most of you did. So please just go and make it the way you know your format for cash flow. Okay? So your format for cash flow is always opening, change, opening, stripe, closing. And then when you reverse, it would be 380 plus 57 gives me that. You see? I wrote it for you there. Okay? You guys fine? You understand what I'm saying? Sure. So don't let them catch you like that. Now, we know that the cash is always your overdraft and your cash equivalents. So if I go look here, what is my overdraft? For the beginning, it's 76, and my cash is 19. So it's minus 76 plus 19 gives me minus 57. If I go here to the closing, there's no overdraft, there's only equivalents, right? So 380. Okay, so everybody sharp with the mistakes that you made. Okay. Now, for the next one, remember the rule. We do not read from here, we read from the question paper. So the question paper says, the CEO is concerned about an increased amount of change in working capital. Now, when I was in school, they taught us working capital is current assets less current liabilities. Okay? Now, if you go to the cash flow, remember note number 1. What does note number 1 say? It must say net profit before tax, add interest, add depreciation, add it up, add it, and then block and top. Nee. But what this actually says is blah, 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 before working capital, and then this heading here is change in working capital. So what is your working capital? Inventory, debtors, creditors. Now if I go look at my information, if you look at your inventory, you see it decreased. So if inventory decreased, is it positive or negative? It's a good thing because it means I sold stock, right? So this year actually made my working capital increase, okay? So I can't use that for an answer. So what is the two that is left? Debtors and creditors. Now quickly look here what happens to the receivables. Look at my debtors. It went from 700 to 1.2 million. So it increased. Now there's only two reasons why debtors would increase. First reason, more people buy on credit. Is that good for cash? No, because I only receive the cash later and there's the possibility of bad debts. Okay? Second reason is my existing debtors do not pay. They don't pay on time. Okay, so can you see both of them are not good for cash. Okay. If I look at my creditors, what's happening? It's decreasing. Can you see it goes from 900 to 550? Now if I think about that, there's two reasons why creditors become less. Number one is I buy less on credit, meaning I buy more cash. Is that good for my cash flow? No. Second thing, I pay my creditors fast. Ne? Now, what did we do when we do the ratios? We said it's very important that you never pay your creditors before your debtors pay you. Can you see this is exactly the situation here? Your debtors do not pay, but we pay our creditors. So in other words, what's happening is that I don't get money in, but I pay money out. So my reservoir is going down and down and down. My liquidity is getting worse. You see? So now, if I quote, please remember, I prefer that you guys write debtors increased from 700 to 1.2. Okay? Rather than saying it increased by so much or by this percentage. Because the moment you put a calculation in, your margin of error increases. It's way easier then to make a mistake. This you are literally just quoting. And I can promise you're going to get exactly the same ticks. Okay, now, if my debtors increased, why? Oh, they don't pay. So, then you put in those things. How are you going to get your debtors to pay? Okay, then creditors, if your creditors decrease too much, then you're going to say, I want to renegotiate my terms. Now, why do I say renegotiate? Remember, I am my creditor's debtor. In other words, all these things that I'm doing to my debtors, they do to me. They give discount if I pay early. They charge interest if I am overdue. Can you see? So what do I need to do? I need to go and talk to them and get an agreement that is good for my credit, my cash flow. So remember, if I'm a shop, I will most probably use the same supplier, because I know I can rely on him. This supplier delivers on time. He doesn't charge extra for this and that. He's close by, so the carriage aren't too high. He's this, he's that, all these good things. So I want to stay with the supplier. Other side also true. The supplier wants us to stay with him because we are good payers. We buy in bulk, so we buy a lot. So they want the relationship to be good. So then you negotiate with him. You say, okay, can we make it that instead of me having to pay you like a normal debtor within 30 days, can we negotiate for 60 days? Yeah. So you always want to look at 60 days is actually really good terms. 90 days is the best. Ne? Okay. Sure. So you guys get this one. You're fine with that? Okay. Now, if I look at the calculations, when they ask me to calculate ratios, it's extremely important that you know your format. Please do not count on the format sheet, because you know that the format sheet can be very confusing. Ne? Okay. Now, whenever you see the words per and on, you know it's a dividing. Can you see? Dividing sign is actually just a symbol for something on top of something. Can you see that? Isn't that cool? Ooh, I got a good joke. Okay, so now, net asset per share. Now, when they say per or on, that one there is the one at the bottom. Okay? The per or the on. So on means average shareholders' equity is at the bottom. Okay. So let's go look. NAV is, let me go a little bit smaller here. NAV is she over shares. She tells too much. So the shares, please make a note for yourself. Shares are always the issued shares, never the authorized. Okay, so I have done this. I know the issued is 2.1. Can you see? That's why it's a bagel, because the marker has to go check. Now, how do they get shareholders' equity? And I need you to listen, because this is also how they check if you know your format. Okay, so this is not what I want to look at. I want to look at this. Now, what do I know? If I look at the face of the balance sheet, assets equals equity and liabilities. More specific, shareholders' equity and liabilities. Now, look at what they give me. They give me total assets and they give me total liabilities. What am I short? Shareholders' equity. You see? And that is why they just subtracted the two from each other. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, there were people who got it right. So now, let's quickly look. You have to show. Can you see here they say one part correct, ignore the word cent. But I can promise you, if you put a percentage sign, it will be wrong. Okay? So don't write anything there. But what's important is you have to show the 100 times 100. That's very important. Okay?
Ma'am, did you put the fan on 5?
Did I put?
The fan on 5. The fan, ma'am. The fan speed on 5.
Yeah. So let's go on. Dividends per share. This is one that they love because there's a trick to it. The dividends per share, you can't just say the total dividends divided by the total shares in issue. Because if you look at it, the interim dividends were not declared, were declared somewhere here. And the final dividend here, meaning the amount of shares in issue, are not the same with both. Okay? So, what do? You know that your total dividends is interim plus final. You know that. So now, let's go look. One of the two they're going to give you because they're not going to double test the calculation. And if I look at this now, they tell me there, interim dividend 12 cents. Okay? So, 12 cents. Now I need the cents of the final. Now, remember back when we go to the cash flow, I taught you, your balances for shareholders for dividends is always your final. So if I look here, this shareholders for dividends, this is my final dividend. How many shares are in issue with the final 2.1? And this is how they get that calculation of 189 divided 2.1. And that's how they get to 9 cents.
Why do they say these shares do not qualify for final dividends if you actually consider they should be nominated in the dividend?
Where do you see they didn't qualify?
Shares and dividends, information given at 31 of says that these shares do not qualify for final dividends.
They were repurchased. I didn't use the
Exactly.
final amount.
So what she's asking is, they say here that these shares do not qualify for final dividends. Can you see? I subtracted that. They didn't get final dividends. I subtracted it. If they had said that they do qualify for final dividends, I would use those two, the 1.9 plus the 470. I would do it as if I never repurchased. In other words, that 2.1 would be 270 more. Do you guys get that?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to see, a lot of you here took the total dividend of 417 and divided it by 2.1. A lot of you did that. And do you understand now why that is wrong? Okay. So, let's go on. Percentage return on average shareholders equity. So, let's go. Return is always your profit, you guys. And now I'm asking you, what part of the profit is the shareholders interested in? What part comes back to them? The after tax. Okay. So net profit after tax, which they gave me, there, over average shareholders equity. And once again I say to you, remember they said on average shareholders equity, meaning equity at the bottom. And why didn't I divide anything? Why didn't I say half times 6.5? Because they tell you that is the average. Ne? So you just put it straight in. Okay? Times 100. You don't put the percentage sign. You just say 80. Okay.
But then it says percentage.